Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to Poland once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. Now, as I've told you on the channel many a time before, the Polish beer scene is absolutely great. There are some very, very good breweries there actually, so do go there, try some of the beer, meet the people, you'll have an absolutely great time. For me, it's always quite exciting to cover Polish breweries on the channel when we get the chance. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is from a brewery that I've never tried anything from before. Quite a surprise to find their beer here in Hong Kong of all places too. But these guys have been around a few years. Apparently they've built a very good reputation for themselves when it comes to IPAs, and the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style I've heard very good things about from these guys. It's a style that I very much enjoy, and it's also got a little bit of a twist to it that I do quite enjoy as well when it comes to this style. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to head to Poland. We are going to go to the Łódź area. The city that's spelled like L-O-D-Z, but it's pronounced Łódź because Polish is an extremely difficult language, so my apologies in advance for any bad Polish pronunciations in this video. But we're going to go to the southwest of the city to a little place called Pabianice, hopefully pronounced that right, and that means that we're going to have a look at my first beer from Browar Ziemia Obiecana. So this particular beer is called Język Faktów. It comes in at 7% ABV, and this one is a New Zealand hopped West Coast IPA. So yeah, like I said, this brewery are supposed to be very well known for their different kinds of IPAs, both hazy and West Coast, and they're quite an experimental brewery from what I gather as well. But the brewery's name, Browar Ziemia Obiecana, that translates into English as like the Promised Land brewery, and the name of the beer, Język Faktów, apparently means like language of fact. I think it's actually named after a song, this one, because when I put that in to Google Translate, it came up with the video of the song, so potentially the beer is named after that, but I couldn't tell you with absolute certainty. But yeah, 7% New Zealand hop West Coast IPA from Poland. This one, we've had many good beers in the West Coast IPA category from Poland in the past, so hopefully this one is very good. But yeah, if I remember correctly, I bought this beer at Wine Rack in Saying Pun. Over on Hong Kong Island. They had quite a few beers from these guys actually, a bunch of different IPAs, so I need to go back and have a look and see what the other ones are, but I bought this one just because I liked the fact it was New Zealand hopped. I enjoy my New Zealand hops. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. Always interesting to introduce new Polish breweries to you here on Rampant Lion Reviews as well. And of course, if you want to keep up to date with the Polish beer scene, you can go and check out Tomasz Kopira, who is quite a famous beer tuber these days, to say the least. But yeah, he's covered the Polish beer scene for absolutely years. I think he started a little bit before me actually. But yeah, so as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Browar Ziemia Obiecana. That is difficult to say, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Polish playlist, and that's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, but not as often as I would like. Like I say, Polish beer is awesome, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Browar Ziemia Obiecana then. So, Browar Ziemia Obiecana, as I said to you already, are based in a little place called Pabianice, which is near Łódź in Poland, and the brewery was founded by Łukasz Kierski along with his wife Justyna And Łukasz apparently was a home brewer for many years, and he just loved to experiment with different ingredients, and that's what this brewery has become really quite well known for. They've become well known for, you know, trying lots of different hop varieties, different yeasts, and all these kind of things. But as I mentioned earlier, the name of the brewery translates into English as the Promised Land Brewery, and they'd originally planned to base the brewery in their hometown of Łódź, but they found that the rental prices in the city made it uneconomical to take it there, and so they found their premises in Pabianice, which is to the southwest of the city, and a lot of the funding for this brewery actually came from their own savings. So this is a pretty much self-funded brewery from what I gather. So they opened the brewery in 2016. It's equipped with a 10 hectolitre Ukrainian built brew house, and they started off as well with two 20 hectolitre fermentation tanks from Slovakia, but they've gradually upgraded the capacity of the brewery over the last few years. But apparently they became very, very well known for their IPAs in the early years, and they're still very well known for this, but they're doing lots of different stuff as well. But they're particularly known as well for their use of liquid yeast, apparently one of the first in Poland to really play around with this. But as of March 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 600 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and their brewery is also the home to Browar Monsters as well, from what I understand. They've been contract brewing there since 2017, and that's a very common way to start out in Poland actually. At least when I was reviewing Polish beers back in like 2016, 2017, if I remember rightly, there were loads of them that started as contract brewers. So quite a few of them now have their own premises and things. Very, very strong craft beer scene in Poland, so definitely worth checking out actually. But yeah, that is everything I think I can really tell you about Browar Ziemia Obiecana for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out, they don't have a website, they've got Instagram and they have Facebook, so I'll try and remember to put the link to both of those in the video description for you below. But check out their social media and have a wee look at that. But let's crack on then and have a little look at the beer itself. I'm very, very curious about this one. Of course, you can take a look at the Untappd page as well to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that they've done. But yeah, there you go. Have a little look at this. I think that's because I think the name, as I said, this thing here on the side, Język Faktów, that translates into English as matter of fact, and I think it's named after a song, in all honesty. But yeah, there you go. You can see the books there, which is obviously the language of fact. It doesn't say very much about the beer itself, but it says it was canned on the 19th of December 2024. So I'm drinking this one at about, yeah, it's going to be about 3 months old actually, if I'm not mistaken. So it should still be in pretty good condition. I have had this one for a couple of weeks, but it took me a wee while to find enough information on the brewery to actually write about it. But yeah, doesn't really say it doesn't really say much about the beer on the side, but I do know that this one is hopped with Southern Cross, Motueka and Nectaron, all of which are New Zealand hops of course. Southern Cross is 14% alpha acid. It's known for its kind of limey and piney resinous qualities. Motueka is 8% alpha acid. It gives you that juicy lime thing. Nectaron is quite an interesting one. It gives you a lot of like nectarine type flavour from what I remember, and it's hence the name, but it's about 16% alpha acid, that one, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see how we go. It's my first time with Nectaron actually, I think, in a West Coast IPA. So let's do it. Very curious about this. As I say, my very first encounter with this brewery. So yeah, the Język Faktów 7% from Browar Ziemia Obiecana. That's the only thing with reviewing Polish beers, it's so bloody difficult to actually say the names of them. But yeah, quite a few of the breweries have kind of anglicised their brewery names and stuff like that to an extent. But yeah, anyway, we've got maybe about 60% of the beer out and into the glass now, and it looks pretty nice, I have to say. So yeah, you can see this one, the can was starting to feel a little bit hard, so having a head like this isn't overly surprising. But yeah, you can see there was about 1.5 fingers of a frothy, I would say slightly cream coloured head there, but you can see it's quite nice and soapy. You can see the carbonation there, but the colour of this beer is pretty nice. This is like a kind of pale golden straw colour. It's got a bit of natural haze to it. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But when it comes to different kinds of IPAs, other than fruit IPAs, you don't really have to care about those latter 2 variables. When it comes to the West Coast IPA, for me, this style can lean 2 different ways. It can be a little bit more kind of bready and biscuity, such as the Pliny the Elder from Russian River Brewing, or it can be the more kind of caramelly and oily variants, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo. Just going by the colour of this one, I think this is going to be a more kind of bready and biscuity type affair, just because, you know, the caramelly ones would be a little bit more amber than this. But there's not much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. You can see if I put my hand behind the glass there, it looks really quite nice. But yeah, it looks just a little bit of natural haze to it, but nothing nothing surprising particularly about the appearance of this beer when you consider what style it is. One of my hairs loose on the table there. But yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about the appearance of this one. Let's go on and have a wee look at the nose then and see what that gives us. That smells good, actually. A very sort of grassy, floral and citrusy leaning West Coast IPA, this one. And as I say, it's quite bready and biscuity leaning in a way. I've not come across a West Coast IPA quite like this in some time. But yeah, it does tell you the name of the hops on the side there as well. I didn't notice that. I got that from Untappd actually when I had a wee look, because they had a few of the beers, and I picked this one because of its hop profile actually, because I'd never had, it was a long time since I had Southern Cross. But yeah, Southern Cross in this one really is coming out. That big zesty, lemony, grassy sort of note is quite pungent in this one, and that really is kind of shining through. I'm guessing that the Southern Cross is the one that's probably been used as the bittering hop in this one, because that's really what comes to the fore. But of course Motueka is quite limey, so it's giving you a lot of that as well. But yeah, let's just break that aroma down and describe it for you more in depth. So yeah, the backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's a wee touch of cracker, tiny little bit of woodiness. These little subtleties are very, very common in a lot of beers actually. But I will say there's a lot of white bread to this one, and the malty side of this beer is actually quite unique. It's a very soft and just very slightly dry white bread, so I'm wondering how much of that is actually coming from the yeast, because I know, or from what I read in the Polish beer blogs, translated of course, because I'm not that good at Polish, well, I know nothing, I should say, but yeah, the bready character in this one for me is very, very unique. It doesn't smell like it's a typical German malt, but Poland of course is quite a big arable producer itself, so it certainly would not surprise me if over the last few years there are more and more Polish malteries now, which themselves are quite unique. So yeah, the bready character in this one is definitely white bread. It's very, very fresh, and it's just got that little bit of yeah, it just has that little bit of dryness to it. Of course, when you sugar the beer up, you start to get a wee bit of the kind of sweeter side of the malty base as well. So there's a little bit of like McVitie's digestive biscuit in there. There is a tiny little hint of caramel too, but yeah, it's very minimal. It's quite to be honest, it comes across as quite a straightforward West Coast IPA, this one. I don't think there's too many different varieties of malt in here. It's pretty much, yeah, bread crust, white bread, little bit of biscuit, and a little touch of caramel, or a more concentrated oily biscuit. I think that's fair to say with this one. But yeah, the yeasty part of the beer at the back of the nose, for me, that yeasty side of the beer, there's a little touch of like brown bread to it, like a kind of farmhousey, sort of crackery type note as well, a little touch of woodiness, I would say. So yeah, I really do like how that goes together in this beer, that's for sure. But yeah, on top of that, there's definitely a wee bit of pardon me, there's definitely a wee bit of like a more woody note as well. So you've got a bit of brown bread, a bit of white bread, and as I say, woody and kind of crackery notes coming out of this. But at the back of the nose, it is absolutely drier, of course, which I do really quite like. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice in this one. But yeah, on the I think on the on the malty and yeasty side of things, I think we've said all we really need to. So let's move to the hoppy side of this beer then. So as I've told you in many IPA reviews before, there are 3 types of hoppings that you can do with an IPA. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker green component. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place usually within the last half hour of the wort boil, and that gives you it gives you a brighter green component, but a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that one is all about flavour and aroma, and it gives you a very bright green component. So yeah, the way that these things go together in this one is quite interesting, because the Southern Cross really is quite pungent in this beer. But yeah, West Coast IPAs tend to use all 3 types of hopping, which is why they're slightly more oily and kind of bitter and deeper and danker. New England IPAs, tend to use late addition and dry hopping mostly, which is why they're softer and more sort of juicy. But yeah, with this one, the Southern Cross, I think, has been used as the bittering hop in this one, and I'm guessing that the Motueka and the Nectaron are the later and dry hops, actually. But when your nose adjusts to this one, in fairness, it does actually start to come across as a little bit softer in a way. So there is a bit of an impact aroma with this beer, which you can quite often get. But yeah, for me, the green component in this one, there's a teeny little bit of earthiness in there. There's not too much in the way of like piney resin with this beer. There's a little bit of it, but that tells me maybe this is a more modern take on the West Coast IPA, because more modern West Coast IPAs are not quite as bitter. They're not the kind of 80, 90 IBU things that the style used to be. So I'm curious as to how this one's going to turn out, actually, because there's just a little bit of that pine resin, but not too much. Some nice floral aromaticity, and for me there's a lot of grassiness, and I'm guessing that Southern Cross and Motueka are going to combine to give you that in this one. But yeah, for me, this beer, it's given like, on the tropical side of things, I'm getting quite a bit of like peach and nectarine for sure. The peach is quite pungent in the top of the nose, actually, but there's a lot of lemony note. I want to say there's a wee bit of like gooseberry as well. So yeah, there's a wee bit of like, yeah, peach, nectarine, a little touch of like drier apricot and maybe sultana or something as well. But yeah, juicy lime and quite a little bit of a kind of lemony zest coming out of this beer as well. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think, is pretty nice. This beer gets a thumbs up from me in terms of aroma, and it certainly is a bit different, I should say. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the aroma of this one. One thing I didn't point out actually earlier is that this is a 500ml can rather than a 440, which is quite common in Poland. So yeah, as I say, very nice smelling beer, this one, and I'm just very, very curious to try this. So let's go for it. So yeah, this one is the Język Faktów from Browar Ziemia, I've actually even forgotten the bloody name, Browar Ziemia Obiecana, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, near Łódź in Poland. A 7% New Zealand hopped West Coast IPA, this one. It's always the risk when you review Polish beers on the channel, you'll forget the pronunciation of some word, but let's do this. Sláinte, skål, cheers, na zdrowie. Pretty nice. Actually, it's quite a, I would say it's quite a kind of dry and sort of bitter West Coast IPA. It's certainly got more bitterness to it than I thought it was going to have from the aroma. But yeah, I really like how that goes together in this one. It's a thumbs up from me. Quite different. And the yeasty character, I think it's the yeast. I think the yeast is giving you a good little bit of the dryness, but the malt as well. As I say, this comes across as quite a straightforward West Coast IPA. I think maybe just 1 or 2 types of malt or something. But it did say in one of the kind of blog posts that I read that they like to use liquid yeast, so it has a little bit of that almost smoothness that you would expect of like a New England IPA in a way. And I have to admit, I don't think I've had a liquid yeast West Coast IPA, at least that I've been aware of. So this is another interesting thing. I guess some of the smoothness in these New England IPAs would be from that. I think it was White, they were talking about White Labs yeast being a thing with this brewery. They like to use those. But all in all, it's a really interesting West Coast IPA, this one, and the bitterness certainly builds up the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, let's try and break this beer down then and just describe it for you a bit more in depth. We'll start on the middle third of the palate then, as we always do. So the backbone of this beer is a lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust, that's for sure. So yeah, lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. As you go further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit more of a there's a little touch of like a woodiness in this one. Yeah, so a little touch of woodiness in there. And above that you get some kind of crackery notes coming out of it. So yeah, white bread, yeah, so fresh white bready bread crust in there, Jacob's cream cracker, a little bit of woodiness, and yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really quite interesting. Certainly gives you a bit of dry bitterness, and that plays in with what's going on with the green component in this beer. But yeah, above that, I wonder if there's a very slight wholemeal brown bready layer coming out of this one. So you have a little bit of a wholemeal brown bready layer in this one, a fluffier white bready character above that, which is a wee bit drier as well, I would say. Yeah, you've definitely got that little bit of a more kind of dry white bready character, and then above that you start to, I wonder actually at the very back of that middle third of your palate, I think there's a wee bit of like Pilsner malt coming out of this one. So yeah, the way that goes together is quite nice. I think there is a bit of Pilsner malty dryness in this one. So yeah, there's a little bit of Pilsner malty shoutness, a little bit of Pilsner malty bitiness. Sorry, I'm saying that because my neighbour was just shouting for some reason, don't know. But yeah, there's a little bit of that kind of Pilsner malty bitiness in there, and then on top of that you start to get the sweeter side of things as well. So there's a little bit of like a sweet McVitie's digestive biscuity note there. You can feel it's a little bit more grainy toward the edges of your palate, but in the dead centre of that middle third of your tongue you get a wee bit of, I don't really want to call it caramel, but it feels like a more kind of concentrated sweet biscuity type note. So the way that goes together is quite nice. Yeah, so I think that's everything we need to say about the middle third of your palate with this one then. Let's go to the back third of the palate then. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that little bit of bready build up in there. There's a wee bit of an almost kind of brown bready character in the base. Then above that you've got the fluffier white bread, and then you can feel a bit more of the kind of drier bite from the Pilsner malt. But as I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities, and sweeter flavours will come out further forward on the palate. And more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. So yeah, the back third of your palate, you've got a little bit of that, yeah, you've got a little bit of a kind of more dry white bready bread crust in there. Then above that you've got the Jacob's cream cracker, then you've got the layer, that quite big, tall, light and airy, but drier, fluffy white bread in there. Then you can feel the dryness of what I suspect is Pilsner malt just kind of creeping over the top of that, and then you've got all the yeasty characters there. So let's kind of focus on the yeasty side of things. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer for me, it's at its core, it feels like it's got a slightly sweet brown bready character to it. Then surrounding it, it's got like a kind of slightly drier white bready note. Then the very edge of it is like a kind of drier Pilsner malty type thing. There's wee bits of cracker and stuff in there as well, of course. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together in this beer is quite interesting. The malty side of this one is definitely more kind of pilsnery and kind of biscuity leaning actually, but definitely, yeah, back third of your palate you can feel the flavour is taller, then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, so back corners of the palate you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there, but as you move further forward and as you drink more of this beer, of course, you do get more of that piney resinous character in this one, which from what I gather would be the Southern Cross. But yeah, as you push further forward along the sides of the palate there, you get more floral aromaticity, and round the front curve of the tongue the beer is definitely a little bit lighter and more sort of grassy and zesty actually, which is quite nice. I have to say that I do like the kind of, pardon me, grassy, zesty side of things that this beer has. So yeah, that covers the green component, I would say. Let's go to the front third of your palate then and round off the flavour profile with the fruity side of things. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. You get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, wee touch of an almost brown bready character in the base, then you've got the fluffy white bready layer and a wee bit of the Pilsner malt there. But yeah, the base of that front third of your palate is more, how do you say, the base of that front third of your palate, it has the bread crust, it has a bit of the cracker, the white bread's there, and then it's kind of smooth above that, like maybe just a little bit of a smooth Pilsner malt, but then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll the way out of the beer. So let's look at that. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer is kind of what you would expect, to be honest. So yeah, at the back of that, how would you say? Yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, I'd say there's almost a little touch of a kind of stronger grapefruity, citrusy note there. But as you move further forward from that, you get a wee bit of the peach, which I think will be the nectarine. You can feel there's a little bit of like sultana and apricot underneath there as well. So the peach is coming out, the drier apricot is there, but as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, you get the more pungent fruity notes, which is obviously the juicy lime from the Motueka. That's definitely present there. Then you've got that kind of zesty lemony character from the yeah, there's the sort of less zesty lemony note from from the Southern Cross in this one as well actually. So yeah, very lemon limey leaning West Coast IPA this one, and quite piney and floral actually. So I do like how everything pieces together in this one. This is quite different from the other West Coast IPAs I've had in recent times, but certainly very enjoyable. It's a thumbs up from me. Yeah, in terms, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour of this beer then. So in terms of the mouthfeel, for me, this beer, it's kind of mid-bodied, it's right in the middle of the spectrum. Carbonation is quite smooth. This beer overall is a wee bit smoother and drier, as I've said. I think that's because of the liquid yeast, I'm guessing that's what it is. But yeah, the IBU count in this one, yeah, the IBU count in this beer for me, it's got to be more. Yeah, the IBU count in this beer has got to be more of a, I think it's got to be about 70 or 80 IBUs, this one. It's grown more the further into the aftertaste that you go in fairness. So I think you get more and more IBU out of this beer later on. But your malt base has got a bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and a wee touch of sweetness on top. Then yeah, you've got that little bit of hoppy bitterness there, and yeah, a little touch of kind of yeah, there's a wee touch of fruitiness. Just a little bit more of a kind of, there's a wee bit of tropical fruit to this one. It gives you a wee bit of dryness, that too. But yeah, it's more of like a kind of lemon limey, zesty type West Coast IPA, this one. But all in all, a very light and drinkable and slightly more dry and bitter West Coast IPA, that's for sure. And it's definitely got one of the more kind of straightforward malt bases that I've come across in recent times too. But all in all, a really nice introduction to Browar Ziemia Obiecana and Obiecana. Oh, I think it should be Obiecana, I think is the way to pronounce this one, hopefully. But yeah, it's been a really nice introduction to these guys, and hopefully we can review more beers from them going forward. So yeah, this one was the Język Faktów, a 7% New Zealand hopped West Coast IPA from Browar Ziemia Obiecana, just outside of Łódź in Poland. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Browar Ziemia Obiecana as well, and hopefully we can return to these guys again at some point soon. But until the next time, check out my social media, check out their social media, let me know some other Polish breweries that I should take a little look at, and we'll see about making those videos happen. But until the next time, Slàinte, skål, cheers, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very soon. Ciao just now.